Ari.
Hi, Adam.
How are you? My voice still sounds like shit from last weekend.
What was last weekend? Were you sick? Oh, from KCON.
No, I KCON, yeah.
Yeah.
I
It's weird how that'll happen.
It
It's weird that it'll last like that long. Because I'm sure when you were there, you didn't feel like you were necessarily like screaming that loudly.
No,
or, like,
I had a feeling.
It didn't affect your voice.
I knew
then.
it was coming.
Oh, okay.
It was like Saturday, and I was like, oh no, I'm already feeling it. Like, what's happening?
I feel like at the concerts, like, because it's so loud,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you can't hear, because you can't hear any, like when we saw BTS, I remember being like, I can't hear anything. So I don't know how loud I'm actually, like I'm screaming, but it sounds like I'm like, yeah. Like, oh, yeah.
Woohoo. How have you been? It's been a couple weeks.
Yeah, it was so funny. Like I didn't know the dates of KCON. So then when you guys went, I was like, oh, fun. And then I was like, oh, right. We won't be recording because I just didn't know when it was. So that was nice. I had like a little Saturday off, which I ended up doing so much on that day anyway. So I'm like, thank God we didn't have the pod because I don't know how I would have like also done the pod in that day.
Yeah.
But yeah, how was KCON? How was RJ's birthday, which was yesterday?
RJ's birthday was good. We didn't really do anything yesterday because he had like a rehearsal for the thing from like 6:30 to 9:30. So we just got like Chinese food for dinner.
Is that Hail Mary Maria?
No, it's another. It's one of the many other things.
Else.
Sure.
Yeah. Such a Leo. That's such a Leo thing to be doing like 5 things all at the same time constantly.
100%. But KCON was good. It was just, exhausting. I was very tired afterward. And I didn't I wore cute shoes. I did not wear like shoes with arches. So the whole weekend, and we were like on the floor too the whole weekend, all 3 days. So my feet were like,
swollen. Did you have to like put your feet up? RJ posted a photo of him with his feet like up in bed.
I didn't. I probably should have. I really was like, maybe next year I'll consider buying one of those like collapsible like foot bath things, and then like having like being full nonsense about it because I just wanted to soak my feet. Yeah.
At the end of the day, honestly, you're not wrong. A foot bath is amazing after a long day. Like, that sounds great. I would have just put him in the tub. If you got like cold water,
it was like a shower. It was like
only a shower. Like well, I don't know if do you have a tub at your new place, at your old place that was just a shower?
Just a shower here too.
Yeah. Okay, well, this week we read chapter 13 called The Secret Riddle. And we're not talking about word riddles, okay?
Yeah, we're not talking about the Sphinx.
Yeah, we're not talking about that shit. Adam, what happened in this chapter?
Great question. In this chapter, Harry has another private lesson with Dumbledore where he finds out more. Yeah, lesson. Where he finds out about more about Voldemort's past.
Mm-hmm. We get more Voldy.
More Voldy.
Baby Voldy, actually. Not dead baby Voldy, like actual child Voldy.
Yeah. 11-year-old Voldy.
Yeah. So weird, like, observing him as a child. He's exactly the way I would think he would be, though. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. I have a lot to say about this chapter.
Yeah, okay, great.
So the chapter starts and news of Katie's curse has spread all over the school, except no one knows that it obviously wasn't. They don't know that it was intended for someone else. They just know that she got cursed. So they're like, oh my God, somebody purposely tried to curse Katie Bell. Now, I'm surprised that there wasn't like a conversation, just even like a passing reference to being like, Harry's going to have to replace her on the Quidditch team. I'm surprised that even like Joe wouldn't be like, Harry
Quidditch
worried about, it's
everything.
Important. It's so important.
The world revolves around these school Quidditch teams.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because you get
Can
scouted,
you
you get
tell-
scholarships to Wizarding College.
Can you tell we're just not sport people? Like in that
do
moment,
not
I was
care.
like, God, remember? I
The
think it didn't help. Let me be clear.
Yeah.
Our football team was terrible. Like
Bad.
we never had a good year for football.
No.
Maybe if we did have an actually good football team, it would have been more exciting. I think we had one year where the boys basketball team got really far. I feel like a lot of times the girls' teams were better, but then there was the whole like sexist bullshit of people weren't as interested in going to see the girls' teams. So then it wasn't really like a thing that was celebrated. So I just no to sports. I don't like them.
Yeah. No. Ari, you're fully missing because you don't live in America anymore. The WNBA is having a moment. Like everyone is talking about the WNBA right now. It's crazy.
I think I have. I think like that has
popular.
somehow gotten
Their
over here.
Their games are selling out more than they've ever been. Like it's wild.
Yeah, that's so good. I think I did hear about that because I've just seen other people posting about going to women's games. And I'm always like, oh, that's great. Because famously, Melinda and I loved going to see the Notre Dame women's basketball team.
Oh, yeah. Muffet McGraw.
Yeah.
So Harry is getting a private lesson from Dumbledore. So he heads up to his office. They have a brief conversation about Katie and what happened. Dumbledore reveals that it's actually what happened is she had the tiniest little hole in her glove. And that's the skin contact that caused what happened. And he was like, if she had even held it like barehanded, like she would have died.
Casual. He says it so casually.
Very casually.
I was like, this is a child. We're talking about a child.
Wild. It's crazy. Like it feels like there's no investigation. I mean, like maybe there is, but it just is like,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was so casual.
Yes. I need to know like where's the report that's being like where's the Senate on this? Yeah.
Where's the private investigator that was
where's
hired?
the Wizengamot inquiry about this? Snape, he says that Snape ended up helping take care of her because he knows more dark magic than Madame Pomfrey.
Sure. Fine.
Okay.
I love that Harry was like, why him? And I was like, Harry, you know the answer to this. I know you don't like Snape and like we don't either, but like the answer is obvious.
Right.
Madame Pomfrey would have been like,
ask the guy who was a Death
cold
Eater.
compress? And like,
yeah.
I'll make you
pumpkin juice.
I'll make you like a stress relief potion draft, and that would have been
I've got chamomile tea if you want that.
I'm like,
she's
what
just
else?
somehow become in my mind the
I know.
lady.
Yeah.
Bernie Potts, you want some?
Yeah, I just don't think when it comes to dark magic, that's not like I guess she does get transferred to St. Mungo's though, so that is a little confusing. Maybe that's
maybe she gets more training when she gets to St. Mungo's.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. What you're saying is Katie Bell gets transferred to St. Mungo's. Yes.
Yeah. Like I'm like.
But they have I'm sure they have a curse ward or something. They have like specialists.
Yeah, that's why I'm just like, I don't know. With her, like, she's basically a school nurse, right? So whatever she's not like a surgeon or a magical equivalent of like a surgeon or whatever. Because there's no way of comparing this with like a physical accident is the thing. Right. So I'm like, I don't know like what whatever.
So the other thing is that they talk about how Harry ran into Mundungus in Hogsmeade.
Also,
and
this was also casual, didn't you think? He was like, oh yeah, he won't be making off with any more stuff. I was like, what about the shit that he did take? Are we just not going to address that?
It's gone. It's lost to the ether.
Oh my gosh! I was like.
Yeah, and then McGonagall has told Dumbledore about Harry's suspicions about Draco Malfoy. So that has been submitted as a report.
Yeah, it's been passed along.
Passed along. And I like that Dumbledore was like, no, yeah, I heard. So anyway,
I'm aware. It's one of those. I am aware.
Sure. No, I heard. We got it.
I have been
No,
informed.
you don't need to check in on it. We are aware. Thank you so much.
No follow-ups. No follow-ups.
This could have been an email. So they're gonna go into the pensieve again. Okay, the lessons are not lessons; they're just chances for
trips down the pensieve.
Just chances for us, the audience, to get more backstory to understand what's gonna happen in the rest of the series.
Yeah.
So the first pensieve thing we get, they don't go into the pensieve. He drops in Caracatus Burke's memory.
Caracatus? How did you say it?
Caracatus? Caracatus.
What a name.
Who was the founder of Borgin and Burke's, one of the two founders.
The OG.
And he in his, it feels more like a testimony than anything else, because it's just him being like, oh, here's what I remember. He reveals that Merope had sold that necklace that cursed Katie Bell to him, and she was so desperate for money and didn't know what it actually was, or what its worth really was.
Wait, not the necklace that cursed Katie Bell.
Was it not?
No, the locket. The Slytherin locket.
Oh, the way it was. Wait, let me read the phrasing, because I must have misunderstood then.
Oh, you thought they were talking about the necklace because we were just talking about
because we had just been talking about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Katie got hurt, blah, blah, blah. She confirmed all your suspicions, or she told me about your suspicions, blah, blah, blah. I will take all appropriate measures to investigate anyone. Now it's time for our lesson. Harry thinks about Draco Malfoy. You will remember
Harry thinks about Draco Malfoy again.
You will remember, I am sure, that we left the tale of Lord Voldemort's beginnings at the point where the handsome muggle Tom Riddle had abandoned his witch wife Merope and returned to his family home in Little Hangleton. Merope was left alone in London, expecting the baby who would one day become Lord Voldemort. How do you know she was in London, sir? Because of the evidence of one Caracatus Burke, said Dumbledore, who, by an odd coincidence, helped found the very shop whence came the necklace we have just been discussing. Oh, so he's saying, I see. This is why I misunderstood. The necklace was from Morgan and Burke's, but then we're talking about the locket.
We were just talking about the necklace, yeah.
Okay. Got it.
I only knew that because I know that the necklace is where it's going, but yeah. That would be confusing, especially with this other very relevant necklace, other necklace that's happening in real time at the school.
Yes. I feel like maybe we could have chosen a different...
say the locket. It's a locket.
Or just say, and I just choose a different jewelry item. So many accessories to go around. Maybe it's a butterfly clip, Why not?
Maybe it's a barrette.
Speaking of butterfly clips, you have them in right now.
Oh, yeah, I do. I wish they were actual butterflies. They're just plain white or clear. They're not very exciting.
So yes, okay. So my mistake. So Caracatus Burke he ends up giving Merope 10 galleons for this priceless
necklace.
heirloom.
Yeah, family heirlooms, definitely worth way more than that.
From Salazar Slytherin himself. Here's 10 galleons. That's what the way he is it was the best deal I've ever made. It was very, I'm gonna be honest, it was very Donald Trump energy of being take advantage of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ugh. Ick.
Huge ick.
So then we have more conversation. She's pregnant. Tom leaves. Okay. And then Dumbledore is like, she stopped using magic once Tom left. And Harry's like, how do we know? Or how do we know that? And he's like, oh, I'm just assuming. It's an educated guess. There's a lot of inferences that Dumbledore is just like, and then I'm just going to put some puzzle pieces together myself. Thank you so much. Which is funny. So she's so distraught about Tom leaving her that she's rebuked magic because she thinks that's the problem. and not the forced coercion of
not
matrimony.
the love spell. Yeah, not you feeding him a love potion he didn't consent to, but all right.
Right. So then there's a really weird thing where Dumbledore is like, and she was so depressed. She ended up like not even being able to like save herself. And they basically infer that like she just chose to die.
She just like gave up. She didn't have the will to live.
Yeah. And at first, the way it was phrased, I was like, did she commit suicide? Like, I literally was like, wait, what are we talking about? But then when they go into the like explanation of what happens in the memory, then it makes a little more sense. But also the way it is immediately the way that they try to parallel or like juxtapose her with like Lily. And I was like,
no. Yeah. Not the same.
Why?
I mean, that's like in God, I don't know the correct titles of these, but the Star Wars, the second group of Star Wars films that came out with Anakin and
the prequels.
Padme. Yeah, the prequels. She like dies like that, and she just dies because she's of a broken heart.
Of a broken heart, famously, yes.
And but that's like basically what they're saying is there's like
yeah.
And I'm like, I mean, I'm not saying
stress
or chronic stress like that. A situation that is that upsetting and that sad wouldn't affect you in that way. But I'm just like, I don't know. A mother's love. I mean, to be clear, like, what is it called? When you give birth, but then you have like severe depression. Like that's a very real thing.
Postpartum.
Postpartum or like postnatal depression, whatever. Like that's a very real thing. So I'm not saying like that doesn't exist, but it just is very convenient to be like, and she just gave up. She just couldn't.
Well, it's so
couldn't
weird.
go on because she had a broken heart. I'm like, do you know how many women get their heart broken and pick themselves back up off the floor and become single mothers or continue mothering? Like, I'm just like, girl, okay.
There's something very weird about this. I have to close this window because I'm just looking at a photo of myself.
What window?
It was the text box of the photo I sent you. Anyway. So I think what's weird about this is like she's trying to give some backstory and explain as to why Voldemort is the way he is.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a level that like she is like kind of there's like she doesn't want to pin the blame on Merope because I do think J.K. Rowling herself was like, well, I don't want to say it's all like a mother's fault that like Lord Voldemort is the way he is. Yeah. But there is also the thing of being like, but if only his mother had just loved him, he would have been fine. But then there's the weird thing that I think really there's whole series.
No responsibility on the father.
There's the whole thing of this whole series that I think is prevalent in most like children's literature, which is like people are born good or they're born bad. And this definitely is a case of like, oh, he's just born evil and like
born bad. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But I also, the way some of this is written too, I was wondering if like she had just read, like right before she wrote this book, she had just read like a book that was like, here's what the mind of someone who has sociopathy is like, because it's,
and here's the reason why they turned out that way. Like
here, let's talk about the trophies.
Patterns. Mm-hmm. And just like absentee father, like mother wasn't emotionally available or wasn't there, like all that kind of stuff.
Killing animals.
Yes.
So anyway, she's passed away because she didn't love her son enough to live for him. That's the lesson we've learned about Merope, is that she just didn't love her son enough. Boo, women.
Yeah, it's the fact that it's like, it's all. So I understand, obviously, Tom Riddle Sr., it's not his fault because he didn't ask to be fed a love potion, blah, 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 whatever.
Nor did he know she was pregnant, right?
And I guess we don't know. But yeah, I mean, maybe he didn't know at all. But I don't know if he really would have cared either way.
No, for sure. I don't think it would have well, in that case.
Yeah, I guess I got to stay. But it's just, and this isn't even like just this book. This is just like society where it's like the dad leaves and it's like, oh my God, that's horrible. But like, obviously you're going to be there for your children rather like, so then all of a sudden the responsibility is just immediately put on the woman without any like hesitation. And then if it was a reverse situation, there's a lot more sympathy for like the dad to be like, oh my God, can you believe like a mother would just leave her children like that and just abandon them? But like, there's never that type of narrative. If like a dad like walks out, father, they're just like, oh.
Have you seen Kramer versus Kramer ever?
No. What is it?
That is literally the plot of Kramer versus Kramer.
It's
Dustin Hoffman and Meryl Streep, and they get divorced, and they have like he's probably 6, I think is his age, the kid in it. Okay. And Meryl's just like, I can't do this, and just like gives him the kid and walks away. And like, it's the 70s. It's commenting on like a lot of stuff society wise. Like and I think it is a very interesting film, and there are great performances in it. But it is interesting looking back on it now because it is so clearly you're supposed to be like, how dare this witch woman leave her son? Whereas like if it was gender flipped, you'd be like, well, yeah, that's par for the course for men, blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then she comes back toward the end and is like, okay, I want to take care of him. And you're supposed to be like, but you didn't even try for 3 months or whatever. It's wild. She's so good in it though. That's her first Oscar.
And again, dads do that all the time where they're like, oh, constantly. I don't have time to be. And then it's like, oh, but he did eventually show up. It's like,
right.
If the mom did that, you would be like, oh my God, a horrible, horrible mother. But for
how
a dad,
dare
like,
she?
He came around. It's like, that
the
child.
The bar is in hell
alive.
for men.
God, it's just ridiculous.
Yep. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Spoken as 2 children of divorced parents.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was like, I mean, preaching to the choir, aren't I? So yeah.
So that was that part. Then Dumbledore is like, okay, now we're going to jump into one of my memories. So it's pretty fucking accurate. Thank you so much. I do like that she includes...
You can trust every word in this one.
I like that she includes that line because up until now, that's never been a question, right? Like, we've just trusted these memories no matter what. But I think it's good to foreshadow, like, there could be memories that are maybe not entirely accurate coming up in the future.
Right.
So it's when Dumbledore goes to the orphanage that Voldemort lives at, or I should say Tom Riddle lives at before he comes to Hogwarts to propose the idea of coming to Hogwarts. So he comes to this orphanage. He meets with a woman named Mrs. Cole, who's the matron of the orphanage. He has a meeting with her. She asks a ton of questions. She's incredibly shrewd. She's like very like, wait, so what school are you from? And like, why he didn't submit
How do you know
scholarship.
him? Was from his parents? Yeah, she's asking all the right questions.
He's like, he was supposed to go here from the moment he was born. She was like, so his parents signed him up? Do you know who his parents are? And he's like, Dumbledore then at this point, like, fakes this, like, sheet of paper, has a letter on it, and, like, hands it to her so that she sees this, like, blank piece of paper and just agrees to whatever it says. But he has to do this in the moment. I do think, like, maybe next time, just, like, have some things ready to go. Maybe you don't have to fake a blank piece of paper. Maybe you can just have one ready to go that explains what's going on.
Yeah, magic a little, like, what would you, certificate or whatever to, like, prove that there is some connection with him in the school? I
just was like, girl, you could have just literally just printed out a letter. It didn't have to be like this whole thing.
Yeah, again, you can do magic. It'll take you, like, a second.
And then he also draws up, while she's reading this letter, I use letter in quotes here, obviously. He draws up a bottle of gin with 2 glasses.
He knew. How did he know? He knew the way. Did he do some little occlumency on her?
Either that, or he just, assumed she was a woman in England.
Drunk? He's like, I know how to get through to you. You look like a woman that enjoys your gin.
He had seen Annie. So he was like,
Yeah.
oh, Miss Hannigan's a drunk. So I bet.
I almost said Miss Hannigan earlier too when you were explaining the matron. I was like, so Miss Hannigan.
But I will say she's
nice.
she's not, I wouldn't say she's nice, but she's written as like, just like very matter of fact. And like, she's not a bitch.
She's not warm, but she's not like horrible like Miss Hannigan.
Right. She's not evil. You're not supposed to be like, the children in this orphanage are in mortal peril.
She makes a point of saying that they look reasonably well cared for, but like it still didn't seem like a nice place to grow up, I think is what she says.
Right. So she tells the story of how Tom Riddle came to the orphanage. He was born in the orphanage. Merope one night came up to the orphanage. They took her in. Within an hour, she had the baby, and within another hour, she had passed away. So it all happened very suddenly.
This is also why I'm like, why wasn't it just like she died in childbirth? Why was it like she just didn't have the will to live?
Well, because she couldn't die in childbirth. She had to die afterward because she had to have enough time so she could say what Tom Riddle's name should be and that she wanted him to be handsome like his father. We had to get those points in there for sure.
Right. Very important.
That took about an hour.
Very important. Okay. That took about an hour. Trying to get the words out.
Yeah. It's tough. Okay, so yeah, she has a baby in the orphanage. There is clearly she is drawing inspiration from the book/movie The Omen of a little kid who is like really scary. That's the whole thing, guys. If you're going into this blind, if you're like, let me crack open Harry Potter, I've never read it, and I'm going to start with chapter 13 in book 6. It's The Omen.
I mean, if you think of the boy that plays young Tom Riddle, it's like 100% a boy that would be in The Omen. Is it the same actor? What could you imagine if you looked up like The Omen and it was the same child actor? Yeah. That would be amazing.
Because they had remade The Omen in like 2006, I think.
Yeah, like around
the same time
after, but yeah.
Yeah. We'll talk about that recasting. Because him going from book 2 Tom Riddle to book 6 Tom Riddle is weird.
I know. I didn't like the second choice. I liked the first choice.
I've kind of narratively decided that he thought he put in a more handsome version of himself in the diary.
He was like, let me give myself a little upgrade.
Right. Yes, bitch.
Yeah, I loved the Tom Riddle that was in the second movie. I loved him, and I wasn't the biggest fan of. But they kept that Tom Riddle with the child Omen Tom Riddle.
Yes,
it's like the same vibe.
Yeah. So, she's like, Tom's, he's a little weird. And he's like, oh, please do tell. So she says that. See, she says that she insinuates that Tom killed Billy Stubbs's pet rabbit, but then she's like, but he couldn't have because the rabbit was found hanging from the rafters. How he would have gotten up there? Like, she's like plausibly denying. There's a plausible deniability that she can't actually be like, he definitely did it. But she was like, they had an argument the day before, and then the next day Billy's rabbit died.
Yeah,
then gone. She's like, then there was the time when we took him to the beach, and him and these other 2 kids went into the cave, and the kids came out, and they were completely different. And there is no further explanation of what happened. And
or investigation.
No investigation, and I have to be very honest. We know it's Tom Riddle, so something magical. But if a normal kid, I would have been like, there was some predatory behavior happening in there.
Yeah, definitely.
That is clearly just not looked into because the kids were like, oh, nothing happened. Trauma.
I'm fine.
What do you think happened?
Okay. Well, that's where he Later does something with we go there. I think that's the cave we go to later in this book.
In this book?
And so yeah, I think he hurt those kids in there, and then like that's why he put something there later, because it's like a happy memory for him, which is so fucked up.
Oh god.
But I don't know what, I mean, it could have been he just like took them in there to scare them and like freak them out, and just that was the enjoyment he got out of it.
Because I'm trying to think of like he
but
doesn't know how to do anything other than like he has feelings and those feelings manifest as magic. But like
he knew how to hang the rabbit. Do you know what I mean? So it's like he could have like made them levitate and dropped them to the ground or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's scary. So yeah, I think it's purposefully left. It's like what. Your brain is like, well, what could he have done to them?
Have fun imagining your own horrors in your own head. It's a choose your own adventure book.
Yeah.
I have. He said, Dumbledore said, she's like, so if you're gonna take him, by all means. Also, she's like sloshed on gin at this point. At one point she says she's drank 2/3 of this bottle of gin, which is an insane amount of gin to drink in like a 3-minute conversation. Like this conversation is not long, and she's drank 2/3 of this bottle.
And then she just stands up and is like ready to go about her day.
Yeah.
This is a normal Tuesday for her. For Mrs. Cole.
Yeah, for Mrs. Cole. Mrs. Cole. So the other thing I was going to ask is Dumbledore says like, so if he comes to school, he will have to return here for summer breaks because he can't stay at the school for summer breaks. And she's like, well, that's fine because at least it's only like whatever, a month and a half or whatever. And this was the point that I was like, are there no orphanages in the wizarding world?
I mean, I guess not. Like, I mean, it could be because the fact that he's a muggle. Because that's like where he has to stay.
Harry having to go back to the Dursleys every year, fine. We got an explanation for that, right? Like, and they don't allow people to stay at Hogwarts, although they definitely could, whatever. But
yeah. Summer school.
The house elves are there all year. Like, sorry. So but like, I don't know. I was like, there's nothing. They just there's an orphan that's going to happen at the end of this book series. There's going to be someone who is orphaned. Where do they go? The baby.
Oh, he goes to his grandparents though.
Oh, whose?
Are you talking about Tonks and?
Yeah. Tonks' parents?
Yeah. Andromeda. Granny or Nanny Andromeda.
Right. Andromeda.
And Ted Tonks.
But like, anyway, yeah. I was like, there's got to be one magical orphanage.
Well, especially after
like lived at.
Especially after Voldemort himself, you think there would be an orphanage made for children then, because there were so many magical people that were like dying constantly, being murdered. So, yeah, I don't know. She clearly didn't think of that. Like, there's never a moment where that is kind of explained away.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess we're just supposed to assume because he's a muggle, he's in a muggle orphanage, and then we're just not supposed to question.
But also, like, maybe that's why he's like so mad too, is he has to go back to the muggle world every year instead of just being able to like stay. Like, but then like that's on the Wizarding World. Like, you should have services in place.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
They've known they've known he's supposed to go to Hogwarts his whole life. They should have just got him when he was like 4.
It's also just like illustrating a parallel to Harry's experience.
Oh, 100%. And it's supposed to be like everything.
Oh.
Guys, remember the first book when Harry found out? He's going to react the exact opposite way.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Harry's good and Voldemort is inherently bad.
Born bad.
Born evil. People are born evil. There is a duality, and people are born good or they're born bad, and there is no
black
crossover.
and white. There's no gray area. Yeah, I mean, I think that you're right that it's very clearly just like a psychopathic child. Like how he speaks to Dumbledore, how he only like turns on the niceness because Dumbledore has something he wants. Like it's literally like beat by beat, a perfect example of like,
I swear to God, she had just read a book and she was like, this is fascinating. But I actually think
I gotta add this in here.
I also think that makes sense because later in JK's career, she goes on to write murder mysteries. And I think that also makes sense too, that she like is interested in kind of
and that kind of thing.
Type of writing. Which is fine. You can be. I'm not saying whatever, but Tom, in the initial conversation when Dumbledore finally gets up to Tom's room, Tom initially thinks that Dumbledore is going to take him to an asylum. He's like, "You're taking me to the loony bin. This is what's happening. I'm not going. Blah blah blah." And Dumbledore has to like calm him down and be like, "No, I'm here because you can do magic." And this is at the point where Tom Riddle's like, "I knew it. I knew I was special. I knew I was better than everyone else." I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to defend Tom Riddle. Okay. I think it's okay to be like, I knew I was different because I could make things happen. Like, I actually think it's weird that Harry Potter so quickly was like, there's nothing extraordinary about me. You once jumped on the top of a school building out of nowhere.
You think that's normal?
You think that's normal, bitch?
I think it's, first off, I mean, you have obviously an experience coming from being like, well, both of us now being like queer people. I think it's like, we know this way of feeling like, oh, I don't quite fit into like the normal societal role or whatever it is, like that feeling or kind of. So I think it's easier for us to kind of understand like, oh, I always felt different. But I think what he is meaning or what we're supposed to take from it is that he always thought he was superior. And I kind of wish they would have been a bit more like hit the nail on the head with that.
Yeah.
Like I wish he would have said something like, well, he does say special, I guess, but I'm like, I always knew I was gifted or powerful or something like that. Like I always knew I had powers other people didn't or something like that. Cause I just think that, I mean, it's like a narcissistic trait to just be like, oh, I'm cause at the end of the day, they are insecure. And I guess that is where it doesn't work with Tom, because if he's a psychopath, he genuinely does think that like
he's better.
Everyone exists to kind of serve whatever his need for them is. He just doesn't see them as like a being.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wish they would have differentiated that a little bit. Cause I'm like, well, a lot of people feel like they're different or like not normal. And I feel like is a normal experience.
It is all hinging on the term special. The whole thing of like how you're supposed to see him as an asshole is because he calls himself special.
Yeah.
But I also think I feel like there was such a movement maybe in like the early 2000s of like being like, everybody's special, everybody's unique, blah, 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 blah.
I was going to say, there's like a generational difference there where
I wonder if she was also a little bit like, I don't think everybody should be calling themselves special. But I think there's like an American versus British thing too, of being like Americans are so hyper individualized where it's like my needs are my needs and I'm specifically for myself. Yeah. Whereas like I'm not saying the British generally are like, we're a society, but I think there is a little bit less of the like, I am my own person and the American dream and blah, blah, blah. And there is a little bit of like, I fit in the cog in this wheel in this way.
Yeah, I know. What did Yaz just said to me the other day? Cause we were talking about, idol school and how like I was saying like, oh yeah, they give them like feedback pretty frankly, like constructive criticism or sometimes just straight up like criticism. And I was like, no, they do that. And she was like, oh, I don't. She was like, that's so weird for me to see that. And I was like, yeah, it's pretty normalized in the culture of like K-pop to like call people out like that. And I was saying like, I was like, I think they're doing it in a good way and it's gentle. Cause I was like, I've seen it be very harsh before, like in front of everyone, like public humiliation type of thing. And she was like, oh yeah, we really don't do that here. Like you really don't like single someone out in that type of way. Like you would like say it to everyone together rather than. And I was like, oh, okay. So there might be something about singling yourself out that culturally is frowned upon or like used to be. I don't know. But yeah, I was like, oh, that's interesting. Because I was like, I think in America, it's pretty normal to like single people out too. Good and bad.
Good and bad, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because everybody has to pull themselves up by the bootstraps in America.
Yep. Capitalism. Yep. Well, capitalism, it's capitalism here too, but not healthcare. That's covered, but everything else.
So he says that he knew he was different. He's made things move without touching them. He can make animals do whatever he wants, and he can make bad things happen to people that have annoyed him. So this is how he knew he was different.
Again, all like bad thing. Like I'm like, all of those are bad. None of this is making you special at all. This is very scary.
I actually think this more than Merope giving a guy a love potion and more than like his heritage being that he's like a son of Slither. Like let's put all of that aside. This is literally the Ministry of Magic's fault, not intervening in this child's life sooner. You don't get to have this person and know that they're living in an orphanage for years and like not engaging with the wizarding community, but you know that there's a possibility that they have magic in them and then just show up at the age of 11 and be like, oh, hi, how are you? How's it been going?
Yeah.
You got good grades in school? You did your maths? Well, guess what? You are special and you are different. Like, a lot of this could have been nipped in the bud if you had just moved him into an orphanage that's even just at least you would be able to like explain what's going on.
They don't have like witches and wizards that offer like foster care or something like that. Like what's the equivalent of that in the wizarding world?
Anything.
Yeah.
Nothing. It's one thing if like all of a sudden it would be one thing if it was understood that like the problem is that the book series is written that when you are born of witches and wizards, you are basically, it's known that you're going to go to Hogwarts 11 years later.
Yeah.
So they've had your name since birth. That's inferred in the first fucking book. So she can't go back on her word now. Yeah, I think if she had a chance, she could be like, once we notice that there's magic coming from this place, once our magic sensors locate magic, blah blah blah, like fine, then you can
pick
like
up on
whatever.
The vibes from the child,
right? Then you can do whatever. But because she's written it this way, it just makes the ministry look like fucking shit. That like you just left this kid. Even if the things that he was doing weren't sociopathic, right? Even if they were just regular fucking whatever. You're still putting your community at risk, girl. The whole point of the Ministry of Magic is to like protect, and yet you're just leaving 11-year-olds to like hang rabbits from the rafters, and torture other kids in caves.
Yeah.
No Muggle is able to like know what the fuck is going on. Nobody can explain this.
The thing too about like how she wrote it, which I think is the whole thing with like the love potion and how like what you were saying earlier about how she sets it up with like, oh, if only his mother had loved him, blah, blah, blah. We're just supposed to think like you said, he's born evil and there just was never any hope for him. Yeah. He was like, he's not humanized at all, which I mean, maybe a little bit when Dumbledore's like, are you actually feeling bad for him? Like when, he says like that his mother, just died. But I don't know. I mean, I understand why someone does this with a villain, because especially in a children's book.
Book.
It's like,
I want to be clear. I understand why it's written this way. I'm not stupid.
But no. It is, I think when you humanize a villain, it makes it more interesting. So it almost would have been a bit more interesting if he kind of did start out as a nice guy. I know that's not what she intended. It's so clear she wanted him to be like this bad kid from the beginning. And I don't think that's not interesting, because it is interesting to see Dumbledore interact with this child. Like, that is interesting to me, the reader, to see like them meeting for the first time, and how right away Dumbledore, who we see as someone that is so good, even though we find out later Dumbledore himself, you know, like is a flawed individual, blah, 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 whatever. But at this point, we see him as like, you know, this like beacon of good, basically. So him interacting with a child like this, I think that was always what she was like, oh yes, and we're going to have this moment with adult good Albus and bad child Tom. Like, and she Evil just was Tom. So like, bad from birth, like just out of the womb, was always going to be doomed to just like not be able to love. And but I do kind of wonder, like, what would the story have been if she did try to humanize Voldemort? We'll never know. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there are like real moral and ethical questions about, like, obviously sociopathy is like a real thing, and I'm not saying that there aren't. I choose to live my life in such a way where I prefer to like assume people are doing their best and like best intention. Like, I really am a person who tries not to assume that everyone is like out and cynical and like always just trying to scrape and claw each other to get to the top. Like, if I let myself think that that's how humanity is, I literally would just rather not be alive, to be quite honest. I have to assume that some people are inherently like well-meaning, decent people. And I understand that there are obviously literal mental, I don't want to say illnesses, but like mental diagnoses as to why some people are the way, like literally sociopathy. But then there is like a moral and ethical question of like, okay, so if you know someone is sociopathic, what do we as a society do with them? There is they have no capacity to not be outside of society in that way. So then what, should we put them in a cage and just like look at them and check in until they die? Like, there is like a level of like, what do we do? What do we do? And it's I think that stuff is like really interesting and scary. And I'm not saying that that's what she should have done, and like that's the question of the story or whatever. No, sure. But it just makes me think of like that kind of moral conundrum of like, how do we continue
as a society? What's our responsibility, or like what is the expectation then in those situations? I mean, the Ministry of Magic, even if we can't count on them for just like the daily stuff. So I'm honestly not surprised at all that this, like, that he was failed, that Harry was failed with the Dursleys.
They just added security measures to Hogwarts this fucking year, and a girl still got cursed and almost killed. So I don't know. They're clearly falling asleep at the fucking wheel over there.
Yeah.
So Tom asks Dumbledore to prove that he can do magic. So
not very kindly.
Yeah, he's like, fucking prove it, bro.
The command that a child like yelling like that.
Yeah.
I mean, Dumbledore, he's a little bit better than me. I would have been like, oh, excuse me. I forgot I had a lunchtime appointment, and like would have grabbed my little bag and like been off.
My purse.
Especially after hearing that he hurt an animal, I already would have been like, I don't know. I think I'm already out. Then the thing about the children, and then this is the first interaction.
Yeah.
And I like children. Like, I work with kids, but like I would literally be like, oh no, I'm not getting paid enough for this.
But also
Dumbledore probably wasn't getting paid at all.
No, we've discussed that there is no like mental health anything in the wizarding world. So like you can't even be like, oh, we need to get you to a counselor, a therapist. Like, there's or have nobody. Or what Dumbledore's options are, I guess, just go to school. I guess just go to History of Magic with Professor Binns, girl. I don't know what to tell you.
But also, it's like, isn't this a little negligent too? Because it's like, now you know that he has been unkind to other students already.
Well, Dumbledore,
so, like,
as he says, he was going to keep an eye on him.
Yeah. I guess he doesn't does he put like a letter in his file or something? Like,
Dumbledore, I got to be honest, you didn't do a great job keeping an eye on him when he was the heir of Slytherin and set a basilisk on the school and had a student killed. I don't know. I don't know if your eye was really working that year, girl. Oh. So, he tells Dumbledore he would like to see him prove that he can do magic. Harry's like, there's no way Dumbledore's going to do it. He's going to tell him, where it's safer to do it at school.
I would have been like,
and Dumbledore is like, okay, bitch, and like sets the wardrobe on fire. And then immediately puts the wardrobe out. So obviously very cool, whatever. I do think it's interesting that I think Dumbledore inherently knows that the thing that would impress, not that I'm saying he wants to impress him, but I think it's interesting that he chose something destructive.
Fire. Yeah.
To show him.
Mm-hmm.
So he sets the wardrobe on fire.
I love that he does it. Does he use his wand? In the movie,
he uses his wand, yeah.
Okay.
Because then Tom says, "Where can I get one of those?" Is his
yes, that's right. Also greedily.
Yes. So Dumbledore sets the wardrobe on fire. He puts it out, and then you hear in the wardrobe, there's like it's the sound of like something moving, something shaking around in a box. A little maracas. So Tom takes out the box and dumps out the contents. It sounds like there's mice in there or something, and it ends up being like a yo-yo and a harmonica and a thimble or whatever. And Dumbledore's like, so you stole those from people, and you're going to give those back, and you're going to apologize. And also, there's no thievery at Hogwarts, so you're going to have to cut that off right now, bitch. And
I
Tom's
wish you would have said that.
Tom's like, yes, sir.
Yeah, now he's like a perfect behaved little boy.
But he's also, every time I imagine Tom saying any line, it's always the like.
Yeah, the like, omen child. Yeah.
He says, so then he asks about where he can get a wand. Dumbledore says, oh, I have your list of supplies that you'll need to get before you go to school. And Tom says, well, sir, I don't have any money. And this is when we find out that there is a Hogwarts fund that they give to students who need funds.
But not the Weasleys, apparently.
But not the poor family at school. Not them.
What are we doing?
But then I was like, okay, so if it's not for the Weasleys, who are like literally a poor family, which is
poor.
Fine,
yeah.
Right? Literally poor. If it's not for them and it's for him, if it's for Tom because he's coming from an orphanage, he has nothing, right? Like I understand, like you have a fund, great. Then I was like, then you have something in place because you know other kids have come from literally nothing, aka other orphanages. Yeah. So then why is there not a wizarding orphanage? Then I was really mad.
Yeah. Then you're like even more of a reason to have one. Yeah.
I was like, you can't prove to me that you have something in place for this exact situation, but then be like, but we've never encountered a kid in an orphanage before.
Yeah.
This is brand new to us. Wow. And what is this institution called here? All these little children sleeping in cots next to each other. What do we call this? Like,
I'm sorry,
bitch.
What is this arrangement you have going on? Oh, you take them in and watch over them?
Well, especially, okay, because if we really want to get into it, wait, Tom Riddle, years alive. Okay, Tom Riddle.
Years alive.
Thank you. I didn't know how to write that. Tom Riddle. Oh, he's born on December 31st. Interesting. He's a New Year's Eve baby. He's born December 31st, 1926 to May 2nd, 1998. Allegedly, which is what Harry Potter Wiki is telling me. Allegedly. But that means if he's 11, it's 1937. Okay, so, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs came out this year. But more importantly, we're going through like the Depression. I feel like there's just there's just
orphans
children everywhere.
Yeah.
Because like Great Britain was already in World War II at this point, weren't they? We got it in 41, but I think they were already in. There were already homeless kids.
Yeah, and they would have been like rationing and all that kind of stuff. So it couldn't have been great.
Hello? Okay.
Yeah. The wizarding world is just like, not our problem.
Not our problem. Sorry. Not our circus, not our monkeys. I don't know what to tell you. Okay, so he immediately assumes... Okay, so he calls him Tom at one point, and he has a visceral reaction to being called Tom. Because he thinks it seems like he thinks the name is too common. There's a bunch of people.
What else
there's
are
a bunch of people named Tom.
You? Everyone must call you Tom, though. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, I gotta be honest. Riddle is the coolest fucking last name. That is such a cool
Riddle
last name.
Riddle is a great last name.
I would just have
maybe
people
that's
call me
it.
Riddle.
Maybe they call him Riddle, and he's liked that up until he finds out that his dad was a Muggle. I don't know.
Maybe. Okay, so this is what I was going to talk about. So he's like, well, obviously, since my mom died, she wasn't a fucking witch.
Yeah, I know. Right away. Yeah, I was like...
So my dad... Because Dumbledore doesn't know his lineage. This is the wildest part of this whole thing, is that at this point in the narrative... I would
have thought that he would have known when he came to see him, that they would have figured it out.
That he's the gaunt. Nope, nothing. He finds all that out after the fact.
It's literally just like a little beep, like you said, essentially went off, and they're like, "Oh, there's a magical child here at this orphanage."
Yeah,
and that's
that
it?
we've had
like,
on our records since whatever. It's annoying.
Yeah,
it's very annoying. I do not like it. So he doesn't know who he is. So he's like, "Oh, I don't know if your mom or your dad were whatever. I don't know." His mom, although he should have figured it out. Okay, because here's the craziest part. They know his name is Marvolo. There can't be... I understand wizarding...
There can't be that many.
There cannot be that many Marvolos.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they know his name is blah, 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 blah. So Dumbledore's like, yeah, I don't know who the fuck your parents were. Sorry about it, bro. And Tom is immediately like, well, I definitely think it was my dad because my mom died, and obviously a witch wouldn't die, and so blah blah blah. And I was like, Harry, very interesting that you're like Voldemort in this way, where you think more of your father than your mother automatically. I think that's very interesting.
It's very revealing. A similarity has appeared.
Interesting. I actually think she did this on purpose, right? Because I think she is trying to say like he's such an asshole. Like she has like such a negative view of this character that she's trying to like layer in this, like, he's such an asshole. Like he automatically thinks his dad is better than his mom just because of the mere fact that she died, and he doesn't know she died of a broken heart and blah, blah, blah. So she's like trying to layer that into without even realizing that she has her main character already doing this in this book series. Yes. She doesn't even know it because it's so subconscious with her.
Yes. There's not an awareness that she has written this child's perspectives to be the exact same way.
It's
there's no awareness of it. Yeah. It's bad.
It is, of all the things we have read in this book series, it is the most revealing thing I think we've figured out about Joe Rowling.
Yeah.
Is like this chapter. I was like, oh, you don't know. You don't know you're doing this.
Yeah.
Oh,
no, that's
girl.
And I always got that, but I think maybe that might just be like as a woman, it's clear when something's written in that way, and it's like a subconscious thing from her, because they'll be constantly, she just says things or the way it's written that I'm just like, oh my God, like,
crazy.
Dude, hello, like your inherent bias is showing, like, ugh, so bad.
It's so funny. It
doesn't have to be that way, especially at her age, Adam, when she wrote this book. Like, I understand when she was writing, it was like the 90s, but like there still was like way more awareness around these type of things in the 90s to the early 2000s.
The thing of it all, really, at the end of the day, is that I would not be as critical of Jo if, like, in the past 5 years, she has not fully decimated her own, like, morality by being a nightmare person. Like, genuinely, like, I would it's not even my place to excuse this, but I would be like, oh, it's understandable. Like she grows, she learns. Like you're constantly unlearning things that are like,
exactly.
Thousands of years of society has drummed into your skull. Like there's the history of time weighing down on everything you know in life, right? So I understand like constantly having to being like, wow, I never thought of it that way. Like blah blah blah. That would be fine if she hasn't been like a person who's been like, and men are this and women are this. And it's like, well, girl, you can't be like, I speak for all women and then write shit like where it's so clear that you have internal biases. Like, you haven't done the work yourself, diva.
I mean, literally just this weekend with the Olympics, she was tweeting again. Yeah, there's no reason to even like talk about it, but I'm just saying, like, she just will not stop. And then the fact that
whole
she is
situation is such a fucking nightmare.
I know.
It's horrible.
I know. But the fact that she will go in to make it sound like she is this woman for women's rights. And I'm like, girl, we're reading your book right now, girl. Like, I'm just like,
where are the women?
All your books.
Like, where are the rights? Where are the rights for women?
I don't understand. Like, it just,
it's so shocking.
Like, okay. And also you're using a pen name that's a man's name. Like, you could be making a difference if you purposefully were not doing shit like that. Like, it would make a difference. But like, you're doing things that I'm like, girl.
She went out of her way to
what message
anonymize her gender. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just like, so it's like, yeah, I don't know. That's why I'm like, publish it as a woman. I think that's why she went by J.K. Rowling.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Instead of just like, it's like... And I don't know, maybe that was like what she was instructed to do at the time. Maybe that was the like, they recommended female authors to do that and she didn't have much of a say. But no one told her that she had to pick Richard Galbraith, whoever it was. Galbraith. Yeah, Robert. Okay, I was like, Robert Galbraith. Yeah, I was like, no one told her to do that. She just did that.
No one told you to do that, diva.
You could have picked any other woman's name.
And we know, girl, you can make up names.
I was just going to say Rowena Galbraith.
Anything. And literally just like, even just, it was like Marianne Leanne. Sure. Great.
Marianne Leanne. I like it. Marianne Leanne.
Anyway, yes, that is very interesting to, I literally, when I read it last night, I had to pause and be like, wow. It like hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, she doesn't even know. Even know. It's crazy.
There's so many things like that. So many things in these books like that it's like, oh, she's completely oblivious.
Yeah. It's such a bummer. So then as like a way to be like, isn't this cool? Tom Riddle reveals that he can talk to snakes. He can speak to snakes. And he's like, I bet no one else can do this. And Dumbledore's like, well, some can. So
it's uncommon, but there are people who do. So it's not that big of a deal, actually. Yeah. I'm not that impressed.
And Thomas, you can clearly see like Tom is a little like, oh. Okay.
He's like, his eye like twitches. He's like,
fine. Great.
That's fine. I don't even care.
It is funny that he... Yeah. Oh, I love Veep.
Watch the TV show Veep. Oh my God. Yeah. When she has the eye twitch.
Yes.
And she's like, blink, and she'll like blink through it. So she's like, so we're rewatching it right now. Probably everyone in the world is right now. Probably.
It's so funny.
It's so funny. I love Gary. Gary's my favorite character.
Oh, Gary.
Gary and Splet. Richard Splet.
Yes.
I love him.
So I do wonder if... I think it's interesting that Tom would have even had the feeling, because he says he can communicate with animals. He can make them do whatever he wants. But I guess maybe because he can specifically hear the snakes talk back to him is like why he's like, I bet this is different than other things.
Chat.
Yeah. So they finally come out of this memory. And they have a little debrief. They have a little chit chat about what they just saw. And Dumbledore points out a few things that we've already talked about. So he points out that, Riddle was very ready to believe that he was special, contrasted to Harry, refusing
Yeah, here
to
we go.
Hagrid that he was a wizard. His dislike of the name Tom was that it was too common. We also talked about that. He calls Tom Riddle self-sufficient, secretive, and friendless, and that he's probably never had a friend in his whole fucking life. Dumbledore, if you don't read the girls, if you do not read the damn girls, bitch.
I was going to say the one thing that we didn't mention is that when he gets the bag of money and is talking about getting his supplies, Dumbledore does offer to go with him. And he's like, no, I don't need your help. And that's another moment where Harry's like, oh, he's surely going to insist on coming with Tom. And Dumbledore doesn't. He's like, okay, which I was like, same. I would have been like, figure it out. I'm not helping you. Like, I could not have gotten out of that room fast enough with a child like this. I just would have been like,
it is fascinating because he is very disturbed, right? Like Tom Riddle is like a very disturbed child. There's red flag. They walk into a sea of red flags as soon as you walk into that room. First of all, I was fascinated that Tom Riddle has his own room at this orphanage. I was like, they have their own rooms? Are you kidding me? Anyway,
no one wants to room with him.
No one wants to room with Tom. So I thought that was interesting, but I just kept being like, but he's 11. And then I was just thinking of 11-year-olds and being like, even if I was like annoyed with them, I would be like, you can't do anything on your own. Like, what are you talking about? But also this was 1937. We had different expectations. Children were like fully adults at like 14. They had to go work in the factories and the mines.
God, I know. I'm surprised they don't have him doing like a part-time job, honestly.
Right.
Like, could very well have been doing that. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think Dumbledore, he's kind of giving him space while also obviously setting up, like making it clear the things that they're not going to tolerate at Hogwarts. But he's kind of just like letting him essentially show Dumbledore who he is. Like he's just kind of letting him do things the way that he wants to do, which I do think to a certain degree, especially if they're like, older than like 7 maybe, you want them to be able to kind of do things on their own and have that sense of independence. But I'm like, especially because you mentioned like the World War situation, I'm like, this child is going into London by himself like during this time, so he would go to this place for the first time by himself. The Blitz is
just going on, it's fine.
Yeah, so I didn't really think about that, but now I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I think it just shows that he doesn't want, he doesn't have any community. He doesn't want people. He's learned to not depend on anyone. Again, like just this whole, like, there was never a chance for him. He was already kind of destroyed at this point.
The way he describes him though as being self-sufficient, secretive, and friendless. Secretive and friendless, those are negative traits, right? Secretive, like you're... But like self-sufficient is interesting because self-sufficient is usually like a pro. Yeah. Usually it's just that it's tilted to the extreme, right? Like it's like, it's that he refuses help from anyone else because he's so sure that he can do it on its own. But I also would just be like, I would see a child like that and be like, oh, you're so damaged, boo-boo. Like we have to, like at 11 years old, you're like, I don't need any help. It's fine. I mean, that's like half the cast of Newsies acts like that.
What is this, Newsies? He's going to whip out a paper and start doing fouetté turns? That's Adam. That's his part-time job.
He's he sells the evening papes.
He's in Newsies.
Yeah.
I guess Newsies is in America, though. Never mind. Wrong country. He's Gavroche. Gavroche of World War, one? If it's the 30s?
No, it's World War II.
War II? Yeah.
Yep. And then that's kind of the end of their conversation. And Harry goes to leave. He notices that the ring that had been on the table the last time, the ring that was like from the memory, was gone, but he didn't see the mouth organ, the harmonica. So he was like, the mouth organ, I thought you would have it. And he was like, no, girl, the mouth organ was just a mouth organ, girl. Like it was just... Who
had the mouth organ?
It was one of the items that was in his book of trophies. So at this point now it's the second memory. Okay. Harry's like, every time I leave, there's going to be one of the items. Here. You're going to have it. And he was like, No, girl, you're not
No,
putting
girl.
the puzzle together. We got to go back. We got to start over. We got to do the tutorial again, girl. What do you mean?
The tutorial. All right, rewind.
Wait.
Rewind. Start that tutorial over.
It's so funny to me.
Harry was like,
I understand. Harry's like already trying to put a pattern together. So he's like, last time I left and I saw a memory, you had the object. This time the big object was the mouth organ. I assume the mouth organ would be here, but it is funny. Like, Harry, it takes two to make a pattern. You can't just start making a pattern based on one thing that happened.
All right, Adam, thank you for that. That wraps up this chapter. Next week we'll be reading chapter 14, Felix Felicis. I do have a message that I discovered in our Instagram.
Oh.
Yes, this is from Megan Cox. She said, hello. Firstly, I just want to say I absolutely love your podcast. You guys are amazing. I have been obsessed with all things Harry Potter since I was around 13, and this is easily my favorite Potter podcast. I listen on Spotify and don't have Apple, so I'm not sure how to rate/review, but 5 stars all the way. Also, this is unrelated, but she was like, secondly, I was trying to pull your account up on IG, and because of the new search/meta function, I apparently started a chat with the AI feature with just the prompt Harry Potter and the Anxious Millennials. And then she was like, I screenshotted it, but it won't allow me to send a photo here. But then she was able to take one. That she was like, I thought you'd find it hilarious, because they were like, this is the meta AI. Mm-hmm. They were like, that's an interesting title. Harry Potter and the Anxious Millennials could be a humorous and relatable take on the classic Harry Potter series. Here's a possible synopsis. Oh. In this reimagined version, Harry, Ron, and Hermione are not only battling Dark Lords and navigating adolescence, but also dealing with the challenges of modern millennial life, such as...
Oh, no.
Harry's anxiety about choosing the right career path, auror, or influencer. Ron struggles with FOMO, fear of missing out on Quidditch tryouts. Hermione's obsession with self-care and mindfulness, wizarding, yoga, and meditation. I don't agree with the yoga bit. I don't think Hermione's a very active exercising girl.
She's not crunchy.
Yeah. And then lastly, Voldemort's return to power is fueled by his massive student loan debt and the pressure to adult.
Listen, I'm at that point.
I just want to say, I think our idea for this podcast is much better, meta AI. But thank you, Megan.
I hate the search function on Instagram currently. That if you type in anything that doesn't match anything, it just starts an AI chat. It's awful. It's awful.
But yeah, thank you, Megan. I'm glad you enjoy the pod. Sorry it took me so long to see your message.
I have a couple comments if you want me to read those.
Oh, okay, yeah. Go ahead.
So from chapter 10, The House of Gaunt, the last time, we went into the Pensieve, Drew Espinoza said, Dumbledore knows that even Voldemort exists in the context of all in which he lives and what came before him. Do you know that reference?
Yes.
Okay.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
It's so good. I love.
Girl, if she wins the election off of that alone, I'll be happy. That's fine. Whatever works. And then Dream Dissonance 4761 said, I enjoy these so much. And thank you, Dream Dissonance.
It's very sweet. And there's also, I do want to shout out, there's someone named Tori, I believe, who is going through all of our backlog on YouTube and commenting on everything. And I see them pop up periodically. And I'm following which chapter they're on. There are some things where they'll be like commenting on a specific thing we say in one episode. And it's literally so long ago and they don't timestamp it. And I'm like, I don't know, girl. I don't know what you're referring to, but sure. I agree. Or I don't. I don't know.
I agree or I don't. I don't know because I don't know what you're referring to.
It's very funny.
Tori, timestamp. Oh, well, it'll be too late at this point.
Yeah. I am enjoying watching as it comes through. I think it's very funny.
Oh, that's cute. I love that. Thank you very much for your comments and your messages, guys. You can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your podcasts, as well as video versions on the Ampliverse YouTube channel and Spotify. As always, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so that we can get a perfect Newt score. 5 stars only, or else you'll have to make a visit to little child Voldemort, and you'll have to sit in a room with him for like at least an hour, 45 minutes to an hour.
Oof.
With no relief. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at HP Anxious or YouTube and TikTok at the Ampliverse. We are hosted on Spotify for podcasters, so thank you to them, and are a proud member of the Ampliverse. Check them out at theampliverse.com. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
And as always, fire!
Waha!
Yeah.
Incendio!